Hey team, Bill Storm here with you. Let's jump right in. We are up to chapter 9 of our study of John Maxwell's book, High Road Leadership. The focus for today is take accountability for your actions. Amen to that. So as always, this is a study. I'm going to be going through this material with you, sharing some key takeaways, some action steps for leaders, my thoughts on some of these things, and it's your job to listen, take down copious notes, and take from it what you will that will add to enhance your leadership capabilities. So John says in leadership, right, the essence of responsibility lies in taking accountability for your actions. So in this chapter, John emphasizes that true leadership requires owning the outcomes of every decision that you make, whether successful or flawed. What do we think about that? Personally, I think that is absolutely true. One of the things that makes a leader is their ability to not only think outside the box, but take educated decisions. And not every decision is going to be a winner. But it's your job as a leader to own that outcome, good or bad. And the thing is that you have to understand that whatever decision that you make, if it doesn't succeed, if it doesn't come out the way you wanted, the true mark of a leader is somebody that says, hey, you know what, that didn't work, but what did we learn from this? What did we learn, and how can we begin again more intelligently, as Henry Ford would say? So let's get into some key takeaways and talk about them. The first one is accountability builds trust. So John asserts that when leaders are accountable, they create an environment where trust flourishes. So taking ownership of actions, especially during challenging times, shows your team that you're reliable and committed to the organization's success. So this kind of transparency strengthens relationships, making others more willing to trust and follow your leadership. Okay, so accountability for yourself. One of the things that happens frequently is when a team doesn't produce an outcome, many leaders or in leadership positions, which I would more call them managers, want to point the finger at their team as to why the goal wasn't achieved, right? But we all know that for every finger that you point, there's always three fingers pointing back at you. But in the end, leadership rises and falls from the top. If you're the leader, ultimately you're responsible. So if you had stockholders and there was a certain outcome that they expected of you, they're certainly not going to look at your team and your excuses as to why the outcome wasn't achieved. They're going to look at you. That's why you're in that position in the first place. That's why you make the big bucks. All right, number two, excuses erode credibility. Yes, right? It's easy to make excuses when things go wrong. But doing that chips away at a leader's credibility. So John warns that leaders who habitually pass the blame will lose respect over time, right? Who wants to be thrown under the bus, right? But that's a lot of times what happens. An excuse is made as to why it happened, and somebody else gets thrown under the bus. That is a quick way to lose trust because the people that are underneath you are constantly going to be on the defensive, and they're not going to step up challenge the norm, if you will, and push the envelope to get things done if they feel threatened that they're going to get thrown under the bus. Number three, leaders shape culture through accountability. So John says leaders set the tone for accountability within the organization. So he highlights that when leaders take ownership of their actions, they encourage others to do the same. This creates a culture where individuals feel safe to admit their mistakes and take responsibility, leading to continuous growth and improvement within the team. Okay, yes. So if I'm leading a team, I'm going to say, hey team, listen, we've got some ambitious goals this year. And what got us to where we are now isn't going to get us to where we want to go. So I am encouraging you to go out there and make it happen. And the thing that I'm going to hold you accountable for is that you actually do take some educated risks and decisions, and you get out there and do that. And the only thing that accountability I expect is for you to report back to me what you did and what was the result, so I can see that if it's something that we should keep as part of our system and strategies and tactics, or if it's something that needs to go. And if it worked somewhat, what can we do to improve it and make it work better, right? So if I'm leading a team and I speak to them like that, they're like, wow, okay, that's a different form of accountability. It's not, hey, I'm going to slap your hand on the wrist if you don't hit the number, but it's, hey, I'm going to hold you accountable for not going out there and trying new things. Totally different framework. Number 4, accountability fuels growth. So John here reminds us that accountability is essential for personal and professional growth. So when leaders confront their shortcomings, they open themselves to feedback and improvement. This self-awareness not only makes the leader stronger, but also demonstrates to the team that growth requires owning both successes and failures. Okay, so here's the thing. It's always great to get other people's viewpoints of where you're at as a leader and ask them to be brutally honest with you. You know, hey, what do I do well, but what am I terrible at? Like, you know, what are the things that are blatantly obvious to you that I need to improve? Promise there's not going to be any retribution or kickback here on you. I really want to know. But what that does for me is when somebody starts to identifying the things that I'm not great at, it also helps me refocus on the things where I really should put my attention. And those are the things that I'm great at. I need to stay in my zone genius and do the things that I'm great at. And if there's something that I'm not so great at, that tells me that maybe I should be looking to find somebody else who has a strength in those areas that can do that part and lead that part of the team for me. That's what a great leader is, right? It's about surrounding yourself with people that can get the job done. It's not about me. Number 5, taking accountability inspires resilience. So John here emphasizes that leaders who take accountability for their actions are more resilient in the face of setbacks. So rather than being paralyzed by their mistakes, accountable leaders see them as opportunities to learn, adapt, and overcome challenges. So this resilience, driven by a mindset of responsibility, encourages teams to persevere through difficulties. Yes, right? I have conversations like this with my son frequently, right? You have to get out there and you have to try, right? And leaders do what leaders do, right? Leaders have to get out there and excuse my friends. If you're a leader, sometimes I'll liken that to being a lion. And I say lions do lion shit. That's what they do. They have to get out there and do what lions do. And it doesn't always work. And if you make a mistake, that's okay. That's the opportunity to learn and grow from it and come back out for another round. So here's some action steps you can take as a leader. Put these into practice this week. Print this out and keep it in front of you and just see if you can implement some of these strategies into your consciousness this week, okay? So number 1 is I'll acknowledge your mistakes openly. All right, the first step to accountability is admitting when you're wrong, or just admitting when something doesn't work. So if you have a team meeting and you say, hey team, listen, boy, I made a big error here. You know, we took an educated risk. We made took a decision, and ultimately it was up to me with the decision that we decided to take. And boy, it was a flop. It didn't work. Okay, so that's on me. It's not on you. It's on me. So I take the blame. I take the brunt of it. But now the next best thing that I can do is to say, hey, what did we learn from this? And let's come up with some ideas on how we can begin again more intelligently here so we get a better outcome the next time. The next action step is avoid the blame game. So again, it's easy to shift blame onto external circumstances, people or circumstances outside of ourselves. But in the end, the only person that we should be blaming is ourselves. And I want to stress this too. You shouldn't blame yourself either. You're in a leadership position. It doesn't mean that you're the all powerful, all knowing, omniscient God, right? I mean, you are going to make mistakes. So the thing that you need to do is you just need to understand that there is no blame to pass. You're in a leadership position, and the point of being in a leadership position is to make these educated decisions and go out there and try. Number 3, create clear expectations. This is a huge one. This is one of the things that I find happens from the smallest companies up to the largest companies, is there are not clear expectations set, right? I like to say you need to set an expectation and then inspect what you expect. but you can't expect something from someone on your team if you haven't set the expectation in the first place. And it can't just be a verbal conversation. It has to be something that is written very specifically. So if I have a conversation with a team member and we seem to understand each other, then that is going to follow up with, hey, such a great conversation. I'm excited about this. Based on our conversation, just to be clear, here are the action steps that we're going to be taking. Want to make sure we're on the same page with this. That will be the expectation. And then we'll circle back around to see how all that went. Are we in agreement? Yes or no? If we're not in agreement, or there's, there's a little bit of confusion, well, there's the time to clear it up. But certainly, if you're not clear about it, you can't possibly expect to get the outcome that you're looking for. Number 4, encourage accountability in others. So lead by example and encourage accountability throughout your team. So John says, when mistakes happen, focus on creating a supportive environment where the individuals on your team feel empowered to admit their errors. Yes. Okay. So the accountability, it gets easier if you allow them to be accountable more frequently. So I like to do accountability like an end of day wrap up report, if you will, on a daily basis. So you don't stack challenges or problems or failures, right? We don't want to do that where it snowballs and becomes a big thing. What we want to do is we want to encourage them to say, hey, what's the expectation for today? What's the action plan for today? And then at the end of the day, let me know how it went, right? And if you catch it early, you catch the fire, you catch the little flame before it becomes a forest fire. That's what we're looking for. And that's just about conditioning somebody to understand how to be accountable, not just to you, but to themselves, right? To inspect what they expected of themselves. Number 5, follow through on your commitments. Nothing undermines accountability faster than failing to follow through on your promises. Amen. If you are a leader and you say you're going to do something, by God, do it, right? Follow through and do it so people can believe what you say. No one, you don't want to be that person where they say, what he says versus what he does is totally different. What she says versus what she actually does are two different things, right? You don't want that. Number 6, reflect and learn from mistakes. Yeah. John says this. He says, it's unfortunate. Many of us take very little time to reflect on our actions. What were the decisions we made? What were the actions we took? And what were the outcomes? And he does an exercise that I love at the end of the year. He'll sit down and go through his entire calendar for the year and look at some of the decisions that he made. He reflects on the decisions that he made, and then he looks at what the outcomes are now that they've passed to decide whether or not he may want to do it again, or whether or not he needs to approach it a little bit differently next time. So reflection is great. And then number 7, last one, best one here, celebrate accountability wins, right? Accountability doesn't have to always focus on mistakes, right? You can celebrate when a team member takes ownership of their actions, or heck, yourself. When you are accountable to yourself and you take a specific action and you get a win for it, man, let's celebrate that, right? Recognize accountability in action to reinforce the behavior and motivate other people to do the same. So when somebody takes an action that you want them to take, if they send you an email at the beginning of the day and says, hey, Bill, this is what my intention is today. This is the action steps that I'm going to take, and I am going to follow up with you at the end of the day and let you know how things went. Boy, I have a lot of confidence in that person because I know that they are conscious about the mission and what needs to be done. And then at the end of the day, if they send me a note and it says, hey, this was what I intended to do today. Here's the action steps I took, and I had a huge win today. I need to make a big deal out of that, because now I'm reinforcing that kind of behavior. Now, the same thing should also hold true if there is a mistake made. If there's a mistake made and the person sets the expectation of what they intend to do for the day, they tell me what their action steps are, and then they tell me that it didn't work, I still need to praise them for keeping me in the loop. Hey, Sue, amazing. You didn't get the win today, but I know you'll get the win tomorrow. But the important part is that we're in communication. We're on the same page. We're on the same mission. And at the end of the day, I know we're going to end up with more wins than losses. So, keep your head up and go back at it again tomorrow. I mean, what a difference that would make in the way we communicate with each other. So there's chapter 9 of High Road Leadership. I hope you enjoyed that today. If you did, if there were any great takeaways that you got from that, please feel free to share. And other than that, we'll see you back next week for chapter 10.